Hey everyone, I hope everybody's having a good week so far. Last week we kind of introduced World War II, and we watched a video on that to see how we kind of got into the war and different things that were going on at the time. This week, to kind of speed things along, because we really don't have much time left, really about 3 weeks of school left, so we're going to focus on kind of what Arkansas's role in WW2 was, and it dealt with these things known as relocation camps. As you can see, you're going to be doing an assignment right here, and I have the introduction right here. It says Arkansas and race relations during the middle part of the 20th century was something that tended to make news. Um, talking about World War II, and then we bring up race relations. What's the deal? Well, here's the thing that was going on. Arkansas was, for the most part, seen as a very moderate state when it came to race relations around the South. Um, you tended to be able to live a pretty good life if you were um, of a different race other than white. Well, then after World War I, we had the Elaine race riot, and that brought a lot of news to Arkansas. And because of senseless killings of black sharecroppers, and we make the news again after World War II or during World War II, is because of something that was created by the federal government. This wasn't our fault this time. This is more the federal government's fault, as they created these things known as relocation camps for Japanese Americans. I hope you remember that Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor, and because of this attack, this scared many people on the West Coast because there was a large number of Japanese descent people living on the West Coast. And so, because of this bombing of Pearl Harbor, many people thought Japanese immigrants, even though they were citizens of America, were going to become a national security threat. So that's what we're going to look at when it comes to World War II and how Arkansas was a part of it. Okay. Now, down here, right here, you have a link that is going to take you to a article in the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. So once you click on that link, you're going to come to this article right here. And this first part of the assignment is only 9 questions long, and you're going to read the first 5 paragraphs of the article. I've divided this up into 2 parts. Obviously, on Wednesday and Thursday, you'll get the second part, and it will finish out the other 6 because there's 11 paragraphs in total. This will allow you to kind of go at your own pace. There's not trying to keep the questions down so you can kind of finish somewhat quickly and take too much time. But if you want to, you can follow along as I read it, and then I will read the quiz, and you can kind of stop when you need to stop so you can think about it and maybe go back and look for answers and whatever it may be. Okay. So this is Japanese American relocation camps. After Japan's surprise attack on Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941, America's subsequent declaration of war in an entry into World War II, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt established the War Relocation Authority, WRA, which selected 10 sites to incarcerate more than 110 Japanese Americans, 64% of whom were American citizens. They had been forcibly removed from the West Coast, where over 80% of Japanese Americans lived. 2 camps were selected and built in Arkansas, in the Arkansas Delta, one at Rower in Dacia County, and the other at Jerome in sections of Cheatcoat and Drew counties. Operating from October 1942 to November 1945, both camps eventually incarcerated nearly 16,000 Japanese Americans. This was the largest influx of incarceration of any racial or ethnic group in the state's history. One of the sites, Rower, is a National Register of Historic Places, which means that you can go there and you can see they kind of have, I don't know if it's a museum or if it's just a plaque to commemorate. I think there's a monument there now to commemorate what happened in that area. If you go down to McGee, Arkansas, and if you travel to Florida during the summer, you will go through McGee. Most people do, at least when they head south to the beaches of Florida. You'll go through McGee and you will see signs for Rower. So if you're going there this summer, maybe give a lookout for that. After Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor and America's entry into World War II, many Americans, especially those living on the West Coast, feared an eventual invasion by the Empire of Japan. Over 80% of Japanese American population living in the United States at the time lived along the coast in the states of Washington, Oregon, and California. Many West Coast citizens viewed the concentrated Japanese American communities as potential enclaves for espionage and fifth column activities. Now, fifth column activities, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but really what they're trying to get across is they thought that somebody might infiltrate some other type of organization that was important and they could sabotage it from within. That's what a fifth column activity is, trying to pretend like you're something to get into an organization and then tear it down from inside. Fueled by war hysteria, reinforced by decades of racial hatred and citing the doctrine of military necessity, President Roosevelt on February 19, 1942, signed Executive Order 9066, giving the Secretary of War the power to designate military areas from which any or all persons may be excluded, and authorized military commanders to initiate orders they deemed advisable to enforce such action. On March 18, Roosevelt created the WRA for the relocation, maintenance, and supervision of the Japanese American population. The search for sites for America's first Japanese American relocation center, as they were euphemistically labeled by the WRA, was limited to federal-owned land suitable enough to house from 5,000 to 8,000 people and located, as the War Department required, a safe distance from strategic works. By June 4, 1942, the WRA had selected 10 sites, with Arkansas camps being the easternmost sites. Arkansas's Farm Security Administration Chief Eli B. Whitaker acquired the land for the Arkansas camps. It was situated in the marshy delta of the Mississippi River's floodplain and was originally tax-delinquent lands in dire need of clearing, leveling, and drainage. Tax-delinquent lands means those were lands that people had not paid their property taxes and they had been taken over. And so they had just been left vacant. And so they could come in and clear these and use these for these relocation camps. Each camp was approximately 10,000 acres, including 500 acres of tar-papered A-frame buildings arranged in numbered blocks. All were partially surrounded by barbed wire or heavily wooded areas with guard towers situated at strategic areas and guarded by a small military contingent. Each block was designated to accommodate around 250 people residing in 14 residential barracks, with each barrack, 20 by 120, divided into 4 to 6 apartments. Each block also consisted of a mess hall, a recreational barrack, a laundry building, and a building for a communal latrine, which is the bathroom. The residential buildings were without plumbing or running water, and the buildings were heated during the winter months by wood stoves. The camps had an administrative section segregated from the rest of the buildings, a military police section, a hospital section, a warehouse and factory section, a residential section of barracks for WRA personnel, barracks for schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, and auxiliary buildings for such things as canteens, motion pictures, gymnasiums, motor pools, and fire stations. Both camps were immense, sprawling cities that were two of the largest agricultural communities in Arkansas. During the construction phase of the incarceration camps, more than 5,000 workers were employed to clear hundreds of acres of land, to build more than 1,200 barrack-type buildings, and to lay miles of gravel-laden roads. The cost of the federal government alone in 1942 through 43 was $9,503,905, which is a lot of money. And what's crazy is they were doing this to house American citizens. This wasn't like they were in any way, shape, or form people who were not supposed to be here. The Rover Camp operated from September 18, 1942 to November 30, 1945 under the project director Ray D. Johnson, and its peak population reached 8,475. The Japanese American population was divided into classifications known as EC, first generation nationals, aliens, precluded from American citizenship by federal immigration laws. These were true immigrants who had just maybe arrived in America and not had the ability to go for citizenship yet. They had the Nisi, which was a second generation American citizen born in this country, which means their parents had moved here, had become naturalized citizens, and then had children, and that is the Nisi. And then the Sansi, which was the third generation offspring of the Nisi, who are also American citizens. These were who this would have been their grandparents were the first immigrants in their family to come here. And so the third generation were truly entrenched as being American. Um, Another classification in the camps was the Kaibi, I believe is how you say that. American citizens who had received some of their primary years of education in Japan. All right, that brings us to the end of the first part of our reading. So questions 1 through 9, right here on your Google form, can be answered by going through those first 5 sections of the article. And so, if you want to, you can quit listening and go straight to answering. I'm also going to read the questions and the choices, and you can stop it after each one. I'm just going to go through these very quickly, so please stop after each question if you want it read to you before you answer, because I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to have any time in between each question. So question number 1, when was the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor? December 6, 1941. December 7, 1941, December 8, 1941, December 9, 1941. Question 2. 110,000 Japanese Americans were relocated during the time of World War II. What is strange about this number that you saw in the reading? Nothing is strange. All were illegal. 64% were American citizens. None of the above. Number 3. What towns and counties were the 2 camps located in Arkansas? Rower Dacia, Fayetteville, Washington, Fort Smith, Sebastian, Little Rock, Pulaski, Jerome, Chilcote, Coal Hill, Johnson. With over 80% of Japanese Americans living on the West Coast, people thought this would have potential of what damaging activity to occur? War, espionage, theft, nothing. Number 5. President Roosevelt gave the military the authority to round up Japanese Americans through what order? Executive Order 9062, Executive Order 9064, Executive Order 9066, Executive Order 9068. The WRA, this is number 6, the WRA was given permission to build the camps, which best fits the description of a block in a camp. 300 people in 20 barracks, 250 people in 14 barracks, 300 people in 14 barracks, 250 people in 20 barracks. Number 7. Relocation camps through the years became very controversial in history. The main reason was because of locking up American citizens. The other was because it cost over $1 million, over $100,000, over $900,000, over $9.5 million. Number 8. Rover operated the longest of the two Arkansas camps. What was the peak population of this camp? 7,475, 8,475, 9,475, over 10,000. Select the number 9, which I just noticed I forgot to number. Select the three main groups that Japanese Americas were divided into. Mazda, Issei, Taichi, Nissan, Nissan, Kaibi, Sansei. All right, and that's question number 9, and now you can submit. That brings us to the first part, the ending of the first part of Arkansas and World War II. On Wednesday, Thursday, we will look at the second part and finish this assignment out. Again, you must do both parts to get full credit. So I'm not sure how many. I think there'll be about 9 to 10 questions. So you're looking around 20 points that this would be worth. So if you did today and don't do the next part of the assignment, you would get 9 out of 20. And if you do the other part, you obviously have a better chance at a higher score. So hope everyone is doing well. Just remember, we're close to being done. So don't let the frustration set in. Let's finish up strong and do the best that we can. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday or Thursday. Have a good one.